I am Coach Sess, motivated and determined, and you are listening to Words with the Mad Coach.
So let's get into it right away. What do you do when your fighter loses? I am talking about the coach. I'm looking at this from the coach's perspective. I'm not talking about the fighter. The fighter's first response usually is to get back in the gym, start sparring, start hitting pads, running. He's thinking about all the physical elements, especially if he's a young fighter, chronologically young, and we're talking about experience young. He wants to do all the physical things, kick, punch, grapple, more takedowns, because he thinks that's the problem. But from a coaching perspective, coaches will tend to want to go into the mental. They want to talk about being afraid, fight IQ, strategy. But what if I was to tell you from a performance strategist perspective, there are other ways you can look at this. You want to include all the information from the fighter's perspective and the coach's perspective, but you also have to go scientific. If you look at a fight, there are known factors. You know how many rounds you're going. You know how long each round is. You know how long the total fight is. And if you have a basic understanding of conditioning, you understand how long you can participate in certain activities before you start to fall off. If you can understand these things and understand concepts such as training overload and recovery, you can come up with the correct performance strategy that will allow your fighter to perform at optimal levels. Now, most coaches don't understand this concept. And it's not an insult when I say they don't understand it. It's just that there's always been this long-held thing in martial arts that you can't learn martial arts from a book, that you can't be too scientific about it, that there is more of this dog-eat-dog mindset mentality. You know, it's all rah, 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 bravado. But there is some strategy to it. There is some science behind it. And what you have to do first, from a mental point of view, you do have to go back and look at how you lost. Where did we lose the fight? What round was it? Then you can point out the very specific actions that you should have taken and then start to correct there. Now, this is normal. This is what most people will start to do. They will say, okay, here you got into this situation with this technique and you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And that's very normal. And you do have to do that because you have to go back and pinpoint exactly what was causing you the problem. But I would also suggest that you go back, if you have the availability, go and look at the entire show. Because sometimes the problem, especially if you lost a decision, the problem is the judging style or the referee style. They tend to fall into habits and they do the same thing over and over, unintentional or intentional, but they just get into these habits. So sometimes you want to look at, before even going to a fight, you want to look at how the fights are constructed. Understand the styles of the judges and the referees so you can prepare in advance for these situations. We can talk about this a little bit more and go into details, but it's not just jumping back in the gym and going rah, rah, rah. I am Coach Sess, and you've had Words with the Mad Coach.
Judges' scorecards, we had a split decision. Judge number one scores this bout 29-28 for Flood. Judge number two scores it 29-28 for Artis. Judge number three scores this bout 29-28. Your winner by split decision,